Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates spent weekends at the mall or painting their nails, she could be found at her grandfather's ranch, learning to handle firearms with the precision of a seasoned marksman. Her grandfather, Miguel, was a former Army sniper who had served 3 tours in Vietnam. He saw something special in his granddaughter's steady hands and unwavering focus. Mija, shooting isn't just about pulling a trigger, Miguel would say as they practiced behind the old barn. It's about understanding wind, distance, your heartbeat, even the way you breathe. The rifle becomes an extension of yourself. Sarah absorbed every lesson like a sponge. By the age of 16, she could hit targets at distances that impressed even the local hunting guides. Her natural talent was undeniable, but it came with a price. The boys at school either ignored her completely or made jokes about the gun girl, who could probably outshoot their fathers. After high school, Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She enlisted in the Marine Corps. Her parents were worried sick, but Miguel smiled with pride when she told him. "You'll show them what Texas girls are made of," he said, his weathered hands squeezing her shoulders. Basic training at Paris Island was brutal. The heat, humidity, and relentless pace broke many recruits, but Sarah endured. She kept her shooting skills to herself initially, not wanting to draw attention. The drill instructors were tough on everyone, but she noticed they seemed particularly harsh with the female recruits, as if testing whether they truly belonged among the Marines. During the first marksmanship training session, Sarah's platoon was introduced to Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, a decorated marksman instructor with 20 years of service. He walked down the line of recruits, examining their stances and grip with the critical eye of someone who had seen thousands of young Marines learn to shoot. "Ladies and gentlemen, some of you think you know how to shoot because you went hunting with Daddy or played some video game," Rodriguez announced. "Forget everything you think you know. We're starting from zero." Sarah kept quiet, following instructions precisely. She understood the importance of military protocol and discipline. When it came time for the actual shooting exercises, she deliberately performed just well enough to avoid attention, neither excelling nor failing. She had learned from her grandfather that sometimes it was better to observe and learn before showing what you could really do. The weeks passed quickly. Physical training pushed her body to its limits, while classroom instruction filled her mind with military tactics, weapons systems, and Marine Corps history. Sarah excelled in areas that surprised her instructors, particularly in understanding ballistics and wind calculations. Her mathematical mind grasped concepts that other recruits struggled with. One evening, while cleaning their rifles, her bunkmate Jennifer whispered, "Martinez, I've seen you during marksmanship training. You're holding back, aren't you? You shoot like someone who's done this before." Sarah glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "My grandfather taught me, but I don't want to make waves. This place is hard enough without extra attention." Jennifer nodded understandingly. "Smart. But maybe someday you'll get a chance to really show what you can do." That chance would come sooner than Sarah expected. The platoon was preparing for their final marksmanship qualification when news arrived that a visiting delegation would be observing their training. Among the visitors were several active-duty snipers from elite Marine units, including a legendary sniper named Gunnery Sergeant Michael "Iron Mike" Thompson. Thompson was a living legend in Marine Corps circles. With over 200 confirmed kills during multiple deployments, he held several long-distance shooting records and was known for his incredible accuracy under pressure. His reputation preceded him wherever he went, and Marines would compete for the chance to train under his watchful eye. As the delegation arrived at the firing range, Sarah noticed how the atmosphere changed. Even the drill instructors seemed more formal and focused. This wasn't just another training day. It was an opportunity for young Marines to impress some of the Corps' finest marksmen. The qualification course began normally. Recruits fired from various positions at targets ranging from 200 to 500 yards. Sarah performed competently, but didn't stand out. She watched Thompson carefully, noting how he observed each shooter's technique and occasionally made comments to the instructors. After the standard qualification was complete, Thompson addressed the platoon. "That was adequate shooting for basic Marines," he said in a voice that carried across the range. "But some of you might have what it takes for more advanced training. I'm going to set up a special challenge. Anyone who thinks they're ready for real marksmanship can volunteer." The challenge was intimidating. Thompson had arranged targets at 800 yards, much farther than anything the recruits had attempted. The shooters would fire from a standing position, without any support, using standard M4 rifles rather than precision weapons. It was a test that separated casual marksmen from potential snipers. Several male recruits volunteered immediately, eager to impress the famous gunner. Sarah hesitated. This was exactly the kind of attention she had been avoiding. But something about Thompson's challenge stirred the competitive spirit her grandfather had nurtured. As she stepped forward to volunteer, she heard snickers from some of the other recruits. One particularly loud voice belonged to Private Collins, a recruit from Alabama who never missed a chance to remind everyone that women didn't belong in combat roles. "This should be entertaining," Collins muttered to his friends. "Girls probably never shot anything bigger than a squirrel." Sarah ignored the comments and took her place in line. When her turn came, Thompson looked her up and down with the evaluating gaze of a professional warrior. "Name?" "Private Martinez, sir." "Ever shot at distance before, Martinez?" "Some, sir." Thompson nodded and gestured toward the firing line. "Let's see what you've got." As Sarah approached the shooting position, she could feel dozens of eyes watching her every move. The weight of expectation, both positive and negative, settled on her shoulders like a heavy pack. This was her moment to prove that her grandfather's training meant something, that she belonged among these Marines. She checked her rifle carefully, ensuring everything was properly aligned and secured. The wind was moderate, coming from the southeast at about 8 miles per hour. The distance was significant, but not impossible. She had made similar shots before, though never with so many people watching. Taking her position, Sarah felt a familiar calm settle over her. This was what her grandfather had prepared her for, not just the technical aspects of shooting, but the mental discipline required to perform under pressure. She could almost hear his voice reminding her to trust her training and let her natural ability take over. The first shot rang out across the range. Through the spotting scope, the target spotter called out, "Miss, high and left." Collins laughed loudly. "Told you so." Probably closed her eyes when she pulled the trigger. Sarah ignored the comment and focused on her breathing. The first shot had given her valuable information about wind and elevation. She made mental adjustments and prepared for her second attempt. This time, when the rifle cracked, the spotter's voice carried a different tone. "Hit, center mass." The laughter stopped immediately. Several recruits moved closer to get a better view of the target. Thompson raised his binoculars and studied the hit carefully. "Not bad, Martinez," he said simply. "But one good shot doesn't make a sniper. Can you do it again?" Sarah's third shot was even better, striking just inches from her second hit. The fourth shot formed a tight group with the previous two. By the time she fired her fifth and final shot, a respectful silence had fallen over the entire range. Thompson walked over to examine her target more closely. The 5 shots formed a group that could be covered with a softball, an exceptional performance at 800 yards with a standard rifle. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Thompson asked quietly. "My grandfather taught me, sir. He was Army, Vietnam-era sniper." Thompson nodded slowly, understanding immediately. "He taught you well?" "That's some of the finest shooting I've seen from a basic recruit." As Sarah walked back to rejoin her platoon, she noticed the changed atmosphere around her. The snickers and jokes had been replaced by surprised respect and, in some cases, obvious resentment. She had proven her point, but she also knew that her life as a Marine was about to become much more complicated. Collins approached her as they prepared to leave the range. His earlier arrogance had been replaced by something harder to read, a mixture of surprise and wounded pride. "Lucky shots," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Maybe. Guess we'll find out if there's a next time." That evening, as the platoon cleaned their weapons and prepared for the next day's training, Sarah reflected on what had happened. She had kept her promise to herself to avoid unnecessary attention, but when the moment came to prove herself, she couldn't hold back. Her grandfather's training had served her well, but she understood that exceptional performance often came with a price. Word of her shooting spread quickly through the base. By the next morning, several instructors who had never paid her much attention were suddenly interested in her background and training. Some seemed genuinely impressed, while others appeared skeptical. as if one good day at the range couldn't possibly represent her true abilities. Sarah knew that her real challenges were just beginning. The Marine Corps was still a male-dominated organization, and exceptional female Marines often faced extra scrutiny and pressure to prove themselves repeatedly. She would need to maintain her performance while navigating the complex social dynamics of military life. But, for now, she had taken the first step toward proving that a Texas girl with a rifle could hold her own among the Corps' finest marksmen. Her grandfather would be proud, and that knowledge gave her strength for whatever challenges lay ahead. The target with her 5-shot group was saved and posted on the range bulletin board, a quiet testament to exceptional marksmanship. Every time she passed it, Sarah was reminded that she had chosen to step out of the shadows and show what she was capable of. There would be no going back to anonymity now. 3 months after the shooting demonstration that had changed everything, Sarah found herself assigned to advanced marksmanship training at Camp Lejeune. Her exceptional performance had caught the attention of several senior Marines, including Gunnery Sergeant Thompson, who had recommended her for specialized sniper training. It was an honor that few Marines received, and even fewer women had ever been selected for such an elite program. The Scout Sniper School was legendary for its difficulty. The dropout rate exceeded 70%, and the physical and mental demands pushed even the strongest Marines to their breaking points. Sarah understood that she would face challenges beyond just mastering advanced shooting techniques. She would be entering a world where tradition and brotherhood had been built over decades of exclusively male participation. Her first day at the school, Sarah arrived early and was issued specialized equipment that she had only dreamed of using. The precision rifles were works of art, custom-built weapons capable of incredible accuracy in the right hands. The scopes alone cost more than most people's cars, and every component had been selected for maximum performance. Master Gunnery Sergeant Patricia Wells was the senior instructor, a career Marine who had broken barriers of her own during her 25 years of service. She was the first woman to complete the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training course and had served as a marksmanship instructor for over a decade. "Martinez," Wells said during their first meeting, "you've got a reputation now. Some people think you might have what it takes to complete this program. Others think you got here because the Corps is trying to prove a point about women in combat. I don't care which one is true. All I care about is whether you can meet the standards every Marine sniper has to meet." Sarah appreciated the direct approach. "I understand, Master Guns. I'm here to earn my place, nothing else." The first weeks of training were brutal. Students learned advanced ballistics calculations, weather reading, and the complex mathematics involved in long-distance shooting. Sarah's natural aptitude for numbers served her well, but the physical demands were equally challenging. Students had to demonstrate they could carry heavy equipment for miles, remain motionless for hours during observation exercises, and function effectively under extreme stress. Her classmates were an impressive group. Most were seasoned Marines with multiple deployments and proven combat experience. Initially, several seemed skeptical about training alongside a woman, but Sarah's consistent performance and professional attitude gradually earned their respect. The psychological pressure was intense. Every shot was evaluated and recorded. Students who couldn't maintain the required accuracy standards were dropped from the program without appeal. Sarah understood that she couldn't afford even a single bad day if she wanted to complete the training. During the 4th week, the class moved to the advanced range where they would attempt shots at distances up to 1,500 yards. The targets were smaller than anything they had used before, and environmental factors became much more critical. Wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, and even the rotation of the Earth had to be calculated precisely. It was here that Sarah first encountered Sergeant Marcus Webb, a sniper instructor who had recently returned from his 3rd deployment to Afghanistan. Webb had an impressive service record and was known for his ability to make impossible shots under combat conditions. He was also known for his old-school attitudes about women in the military. "So you're the girl everyone's talking about," Webb said when he was introduced to the class. His tone was neutral, but Sarah detected underlying skepticism. "I've seen your scores from basic training. Impressive numbers on a nice, calm range. Let's see how you do when things get more complicated." The challenge Webb presented was formidable. Students would fire at targets placed at various distances from 800 to 1,500 yards, but with added stress factors. They would have to calculate their shots quickly while instructors created distractions, simulating the pressure of combat situations. Sarah watched carefully as the first students attempted the exercise. The distractions included loud noises, time pressure, and instructors asking questions that demanded immediate responses. Several experienced Marines struggled with the multitasking requirements and missed shots they would normally make easily. When her turn came, Sarah approached the firing position with the methodical calm her grandfather had taught her. She had learned to compartmentalize her mind, focusing completely on the task at hand while relegating distractions to background noise. The first target was at 800 yards. As she prepared to fire, an instructor began shouting questions about ballistic calculations. Without breaking her shooting position, Sarah provided the correct answers while simultaneously adjusting for wind conditions that had changed since the previous shooter. Her shot struck the center of the target. The second target was at 1,200 yards with a crosswind that was gusting unpredictably. This time, instructors created simulated explosions nearby while demanding that she recite Marine Corps history facts. Again, Sarah maintained her focus and delivered a precise hit. By the time she reached the 1,500-yard target, a crowd of instructors and students had gathered to watch. This was the shot that separated potential snipers from accomplished ones. The target appeared impossibly small through the scope, and the environmental factors were complex enough to challenge even experienced marksmen. Webb positioned himself directly behind Sarah as she prepared for the shot. "You know, Martinez, some people think you're here just to make the Corps look progressive. They think you'll wash out as soon as the real pressure starts." Sarah ignored the comment and focused on her breathing. She had learned to use doubt and skepticism as motivation rather than distraction. Her grandfather had taught her that the greatest victories came when others expected defeat. The wind was shifting between 8 and 12 miles per hour, coming from multiple directions as it bounced off the terrain features around the range. Temperature was affecting the trajectory, and the distance required precise calculations that left no room for error. Sarah made her final adjustments and fired. The spotting scope operator confirmed the hit before the sound of the bullet impact reached the firing line. Not only had she hit the target, but the shot had struck within inches of the center, demonstrating the kind of precision that distinguished exceptional snipers from merely good ones. Webb examined the target through his binoculars with obvious surprise. "That's actually quite impressive," he admitted grudgingly. The other students congratulated her, but Sarah remained focused on learning from each exercise. She understood that one good day didn't guarantee success in a program where consistency was everything. As the weeks progressed, the training became increasingly complex. Students learned urban sniper techniques, night shooting with thermal optics, and advanced camouflage methods. They practiced shooting from awkward positions, through narrow openings, and while wearing full combat gear. Sarah consistently ranked among the top performers in the class, but she noticed that her successes were often met with different reactions than those of her male classmates. When other students made exceptional shots, instructors would nod approvingly and move on. When Sarah performed well, there seemed to be more scrutiny, as if each success needed additional verification. The psychological pressure intensified during field exercises where students had to remain hidden for days while observing targets and calling in simulated airstrikes. These exercises tested not just shooting ability but mental toughness and the capacity to function effectively under extreme stress. During one particularly challenging exercise, Sarah and her partner were required to infiltrate a mock enemy position and provide intelligence for 3 days without being detected. They had to survive on minimal rations while maintaining constant vigilance and documenting enemy movements. On the second day, their position was nearly compromised when an opposing force patrol passed within 20 yards of their hiding spot. Sarah remained motionless for over 4 hours, cramped in an uncomfortable position, while enemy soldiers searched the area around them. Her partner, a veteran Marine named Rodriguez, later told other students that Sarah's composure under pressure was exceptional. "I've been through this training twice, and I've never seen anyone stay that calm when things got hairy. She's got ice water in her veins." The final weeks of sniper school included the most challenging tests. Students had to demonstrate proficiency with multiple weapon systems, execute complex stalking exercises, and pass comprehensive written examinations covering everything from ballistics theory to combat tactics. The culminating exercise was a live-fire test that pushed students to their absolute limits. They would attempt shots at distances up to 2,000 yards using various rifles and environmental conditions. Only those who could consistently perform at this level would earn the title of Marine Scout Sniper. Sarah had trained for this moment throughout the entire program. She understood that this final test would determine not just her own future, but potentially influence opportunities for women who might follow in her footsteps. As she prepared for the ultimate challenge, Sarah reflected on how much she had learned and grown during the intense training. She was no longer the young recruit who had quietly tried to avoid attention. She had become a confident, capable Marine who had earned her place among the Corps' most elite marksmen. But the greatest test still lay ahead. The 2,000-yard shot that would either confirm her place among the Marine Corps' finest snipers or end her dreams of joining this exclusive brotherhood. Everything her grandfather had taught her, every lesson learned during months of grueling training, would come together in a few crucial moments that would define her future as a Marine. The pressure was enormous, but Sarah had learned to transform pressure into focus. Tomorrow would bring the ultimate test of her abilities, and she was ready to prove that determination and skill mattered more than tradition or expectations. The morning of the final qualification dawned crisp and clear, with visibility extending for miles across the North Carolina landscape. Sarah had awakened before her alarm, unable to sleep through the anticipation that had been building for weeks. Today would determine whether she would become one of fewer than 3,000 active Marine Scout snipers, and potentially the first woman to achieve this distinction through the standard program. The qualification course was set up at a remote range facility that simulated real combat conditions. Targets were positioned at various distances from 600 to 2,000 yards, placed in locations that required students to account for elevation changes, wind patterns, and other environmental factors that would challenge even the most experienced marksman. Master Gunnery Sergeant Wells briefed the remaining students on the day's requirements. Of the original 24 Marines who had started the program, only 8 remained. Each had demonstrated exceptional ability throughout the training, but today's test would separate those with the mental toughness and technical skills necessary for combat sniper operations. "Gentlemen and lady," Wells began, nodding towards Sarah, "today's qualification requires you to engage targets at distances that will test everything you've learned. You'll fire from various positions using different rifle systems. Environmental conditions will change throughout the day. Each shot will be evaluated not just for accuracy, but for the process you use to achieve that accuracy." The students would rotate through different stations, with each sniper being evaluated by multiple instructors. Sarah knew that every movement would be scrutinized, every calculation verified, and every shot analyzed for the precision required of a Marine Scout sniper. The first station required shots at 600 and 800 yards from supported positions using the M40A6 sniper rifle. These were considered the fundamental distances where Marine snipers had to demonstrate absolute consistency. Sarah approached the firing line with the methodical preparation that had become second nature during her training. She carefully adjusted the rifle's scope for the specific distance and environmental conditions, taking into account the slight crosswind that was affecting the range. Her first shot at 600 yards struck the center of the target, followed by 4 more shots that formed a tight group well within the required specifications. The 800-yard shots presented more complexity as the wind patterns were different at that distance. Sarah observed the mirage through her scope, noted the movement of grass and flags at various points downrange, and calculated the wind drift that would affect her bullet's trajectory. Her 5 shots at this distance were equally precise, demonstrating the consistency that distinguished professional snipers from recreational marksmen. Sergeant Webb was evaluating her performance at this station. He watched her technique carefully, noting how she approached each shot with the same methodical process regardless of external pressure. "Your wind reading is solid," he acknowledged. "Let's see how you handle the longer distances." The next station tested shooting from unsupported positions at 1,000 and 1,200 yards. Without the stability of sandbags or bipods, these shots required exceptional body control and breathing technique. Sarah had practiced these positions extensively, but the stress of qualification added an element that no training could fully replicate. Standing shots at long distance were particularly challenging because any movement of the rifle was magnified significantly by the time the bullet reached the target. Sarah's training with her grandfather had emphasized the importance of natural body alignment and breathing control that allowed for rock-steady shooting positions. Her first shot at 1,000 yards was slightly off-center, but still within the acceptable zone. She analyzed what had caused the deviation and made a slight adjustment to her stance. The subsequent 4 shots formed a much tighter group, demonstrating her ability to adapt and improve under pressure. The 1,200-yard standing shots were considered by many instructors to be among the most difficult in the qualification. Sarah took extra time with her preparation, ensuring her natural point of aim was perfect before attempting the shot. Each of her 5 shots at this distance met or exceeded the accuracy standards, earning approving nods from the evaluating instructors. By midday, Sarah had successfully completed 6 of the 8 required stations. Her performance had been consistently excellent, but she knew that the final 2 stations would present the greatest challenges. The afternoon brought changing wind conditions and the psychological pressure of knowing that failure at any remaining station could end her chance of graduation. Station 7 required precision shots at 1,500 yards while wearing full combat gear and operating under simulated stress conditions. Students had to move quickly between different shooting positions while maintaining the accuracy standards expected of combat snipers. This exercise simulated the real-world conditions where snipers might need to engage targets while under enemy fire or time pressure. The additional weight of combat equipment affected Sarah's shooting position and stamina, but her months of physical training had prepared her for these demands. She moved efficiently between positions, quickly establishing stable shooting platforms and engaging targets with the speed and accuracy required by the exercise. Her shooting at this station was flawless, with all shots falling within the required zones despite the added stress and complexity. The instructors evaluating this station included several combat veterans who understood the difficulty of maintaining precision under such conditions. Master Gunnery Sergeant Wells observed Sarah's performance throughout the day with particular interest. As the senior instructor, she understood the significance of what they were witnessing. If Sarah successfully completed the qualification, she would be breaking barriers that had existed since the establishment of the Marine Scout Sniper program. "She's handling the pressure remarkably well," Wells commented to another instructor. "Her technique remains consistent regardless of the conditions or stress factors. That's the mark of someone who could perform effectively in combat." The final station was the ultimate test: precision shots at 2,000 yards using the .50 caliber M107 sniper rifle. At this distance, environmental factors became exponentially more important. Wind conditions, temperature variations, and even the rotation of the Earth had measurable effects on bullet trajectory. Only the most skilled snipers could consistently hit targets at this distance, and it was considered the benchmark that separated exceptional marksmen from merely competent ones. Sarah would have 5 opportunities to demonstrate the precision required for this ultimate challenge. As she approached the final station, Sarah noticed that word of her performance throughout the day had spread. A larger crowd of instructors and students had gathered to witness the conclusion of her qualification attempt. Among them was Gunnery Sergeant Thompson, who had first recognized her potential during basic training. The rifle she would use for these shots was a formidable weapon, designed specifically for extreme long-range precision. The .50 caliber bullets it fired were massive compared to standard rifle rounds, and the recoil was substantial enough to affect follow-up shots, if not properly managed. Sarah took time to familiarize herself with the specific rifle she had been assigned, checking the scope alignment and testing the trigger pull. She understood that at 2,000 yards, even tiny variations in equipment could affect accuracy significantly. The wind conditions had become more challenging as the afternoon progressed. Multiple wind flags placed at intervals downrange showed different wind speeds and directions, creating a complex pattern that required careful analysis. Sarah spent several minutes studying these indicators and calculating the cumulative effects on her bullet's 2-second flight time to the target. The target itself appeared almost impossibly small through the powerful scope. At 2,000 yards, Even the slightest error in aim point or environmental calculation would result in a complete miss. Sarah had trained for this moment throughout the entire program, but the reality of the shot was more intimidating than any practice session. She settled into her shooting position behind the massive rifle, adjusting her body alignment to handle the significant recoil while maintaining sight picture throughout the shot. Her breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm that would minimize movement during the critical moment of bullet release. The first shot would be crucial for several reasons. It would provide valuable information about the rifle's zero and the actual wind conditions affecting the bullet's path. More importantly, it would set the tone for the remaining 4 shots that would determine her final qualification score. As Sarah prepared for this defining moment, she thought briefly of her grandfather and the countless hours they had spent together learning the fundamentals of marksmanship. She could almost hear his voice reminding her to trust her training and let her natural ability take control. The crosshairs settled on the target center as Sarah completed her final breathing cycle. Everything she had worked for during months of intense training would be determined in the next few seconds. The pressure was enormous, but she had learned to transform that pressure into the focused concentration that separated successful snipers from those who couldn't handle the demands of the profession. Her finger began the smooth, straight-back trigger pull that would send the massive bullet on its 2,000-yard journey toward a target that would determine her future as a Marine Scout sniper. The moment of truth had arrived, and Sarah was as ready as months of preparation could make her. The .50 caliber rifle thundered, its massive report echoing across the range like a cannon shot. Sarah maintained perfect follow-through, keeping her eye on the target through the scope as the powerful recoil drove the rifle backward against her shoulder. For what seemed like an eternity, but was actually less than 2 seconds, the bullet traced its path through the complex wind patterns toward the distant target. "Hit, center mass," the spotter called out over the radio. A collective murmur ran through the crowd of observers. The first shot at 2,000 yards was always the most difficult because it provided the baseline information needed for subsequent shots. Sarah had not only hit the target, but placed her shot in the center scoring ring, demonstrating both exceptional skill and confidence under pressure. Sergeant Webb, who had been skeptical of her abilities from the beginning, raised his binoculars to verify the hit personally. What he saw through the powerful optics surprised even him. The bullet hole was precisely centered in the target, indicating not luck, but the kind of systematic precision that characterized master-level marksmanship. "That's a hell of a shot," Webb admitted quietly to Master Gunnery Sergeant Wells. At this distance, most experienced snipers are happy just to hit the target on their first attempt. Sarah chambered her second round with the methodical movements that had become automatic during months of training. The first shot had confirmed her wind calculations and rifle zero, giving her confidence that her preparation had been accurate. But she also understood that consistency was what separated qualified snipers from those who got lucky once. The wind had shifted slightly since her first shot, requiring minor adjustments to her aim point. Sarah studied the various wind indicators downrange, noting how the breeze affected vegetation at different distances. At 2,000 yards, wind that seemed negligible at the firing line could push a bullet several feet off target. Her second shot broke cleanly, and again the spotter confirmed a center hit. The crowd of observers had grown larger as word spread throughout the base about the exceptional shooting demonstration taking place. Even Marines not directly involved in sniper training were finding reasons to visit the range and witness what might be a historic achievement. Among the observers was Colonel Patricia Hayes, the base commanding officer, who had received reports about an outstanding female Marine attempting to qualify as a scout sniper. Hayes understood the significance of what was happening and had come to witness the qualification personally. "How has her performance been throughout the program?" Colonel Hayes asked Wells. "Exceptional, ma'am. Consistently in the top tier of the class in all areas: marksmanship, fieldcraft, academics, and physical training. If she completes this qualification, it will be purely on merit." Sarah's third shot continued the pattern of precision shooting that was establishing her credentials as an elite marksman. The bullet struck within inches of her previous shots, forming a tight group that would be impressive at any distance, but was extraordinary at 2,000 yards. The pressure of the moment was enormous. Sarah could feel the weight of expectation from everyone watching, but she had learned to compartmentalize that pressure and focus entirely on the technical requirements of each shot. Her grandfather's training had emphasized that great shooters performed the same way regardless of circumstances, whether practice or competition, alone or observed. As she prepared for her fourth shot, Sarah noticed that the wind conditions were becoming more complex. Multiple indicators showed different wind speeds and directions, creating a pattern that would challenge even the most experienced snipers. She took extra time to analyze these conditions, knowing that patience and careful preparation were more valuable than rushing to complete the qualification. The fourth shot required a significant adjustment for the changing wind pattern. Sarah calculated the necessary compensation and carefully adjusted her aim point. When the rifle fired, the bullet's flight seemed to hang in the air forever before the spotter confirmed another center hit. Private Collins, who had mocked Sarah's shooting ability during basic training, stood among the observers with a stunned expression. The arrogant recruit who had dismissed her capabilities was witnessing a demonstration of marksmanship that exceeded anything he had ever seen or imagined possible. "I can't believe I'm watching this," Collins whispered to another Marine. "She's making shots that most snipers couldn't make on their best day." One shot remained to complete the qualification. Sarah's performance thus far had been flawless, but she understood that the final shot carried special weight. It would determine not just whether she passed the qualification, but how decisively she proved her capabilities. The wind had continued to change, and storm clouds on the horizon suggested that weather conditions might deteriorate soon. Sarah studied the environmental factors carefully, noting subtle changes in mirage and vegetation movement that indicated shifting wind patterns. Master Gunnery Sergeant Wells watched Sarah's preparation with professional appreciation. She recognized the systematic approach and attention to detail that characterized truly exceptional marksmen. This wasn't someone getting lucky with a few good shots. This was a demonstration of mastery that came only through exceptional natural ability combined with dedicated training. Sarah settled behind the rifle for her final shot, adjusting her position slightly to account for muscle fatigue that might affect her stability. After 4 powerful .50 caliber shots, even experienced marksmen sometimes experience degraded performance from cumulative recoil effects. She controlled her breathing and settled the crosshairs on the target center. Everything she had worked for during months of intense training would be determined by this final shot. The pressure was enormous, but Sarah had learned to transform pressure into the focused concentration that enabled peak performance. The trigger broke cleanly, and the massive rifle roared for the 5th time. Through her scope, Sarah watched the bullet's vapor trail arc across the sky toward the distant target. The flight seemed to last forever, time suspended as months of training and preparation culminated in this single moment. "Hit, dead center," the spotter announced. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Sarah had not just passed the qualification. She had demonstrated the kind of precision shooting that distinguished the very finest marksmen in the Marine Corps. Her 5 shots at 2,000 yards had formed a group that could be covered with a dinner plate, a level of accuracy that exceeded the performance of many veteran snipers. Colonel Hayes approached Sarah as she cleared and secured her rifle. "Outstanding shooting, Marine. That was as fine a demonstration of marksmanship as I've seen in 25 years of service." Sergeant Webb, who had been her harshest critic throughout the program, stepped forward with obvious respect. "Martinez, I owe you an apology. When you arrived here, I doubted whether you had what it takes to be a Marine Scout sniper. You've proven that skill and determination matter more than any preconceptions." Sarah accepted the acknowledgments graciously, but her focus remained on the significance of what had been accomplished. She had not just qualified as a Marine Scout sniper. She had done so with a level of performance that established new standards and opened doors for women who would follow. Master Gunnery Sergeant Wells conducted the formal qualification ceremony with appropriate military dignity. As Sarah received her Scout Sniper insignia, she became part of an elite brotherhood that had been exclusively male since its establishment decades earlier. "Marine, you have demonstrated the marksmanship skills, mental toughness, and professional competence required of a United States Marine Scout sniper," Wells announced formally. "You have earned your place among the Corps' finest marksmen through exceptional performance and dedication to excellence." The ceremony concluded with Sarah taking the Scout Sniper oath, pledging to uphold the standards and traditions of the Marine Corps' most elite marksmen. As she recited the words that connected her to generations of Marine snipers, she thought of her grandfather and the countless hours of training that had made this moment possible. Word of Sarah's achievement spread quickly throughout the Marine Corps and beyond. Military publications featured stories about the first woman to complete Scout sniper training through the standard program, and her exceptional qualification scores became part of sniper school legend. But, for Sarah, the real significance lay not in breaking barriers or making headlines, but in proving that dedication, skill, and determination could overcome any obstacle. Her grandfather's lessons about precision, patience, and mental toughness had prepared her not just for exceptional marksmanship, but for the challenge of succeeding in an environment where others doubted her capabilities. 6 months later, Sarah deployed to Afghanistan with a Marine Expeditionary Unit where her skills would be tested under actual combat conditions. Her reputation as an exceptional marksman preceded her, but she understood that combat would present challenges that no training could fully replicate. On her first combat mission, Sarah's unit was tasked with providing overwatch for a convoy traveling through territory where improvised explosive devices were a constant threat. Her position allowed observation of potential ambush sites at ranges exceeding 1,500 yards. When enemy fighters attempted to ambush the convoy, Sarah's precise shots neutralized the threat before it could fully develop. Her ability to engage targets accurately at extreme range prevented casualties and completed the mission successfully. After the engagement, the convoy commander approached Sarah with obvious gratitude. "That was some of the finest shooting I've seen in 3 deployments. You probably saved lives today." Sarah's combat performance validated everything she had learned during her training and proved that her exceptional marksmanship skills translated effectively to real-world situations. Her success opened doors for other women interested in combat roles and demonstrated that military effectiveness depended on individual capability rather than gender. Years later, as a senior Marine instructor, Sarah would train new generations of Scout snipers, including increasing numbers of women who followed the path she had pioneered. Her legacy extended beyond her own achievements to the opportunities created for others who shared her dedication to excellence. The range where she had completed her historic qualification became a place of inspiration for young Marines who understood that exceptional performance could overcome any obstacle. Her target from that day, with its 5 precisely placed shots at 2,000 yards, remained mounted as a reminder that dedication and skill could achieve the seemingly impossible. Sarah's story became part of Marine Corps tradition, taught to new recruits as an example of how determination and preparation could overcome doubt and prejudice. But, for those who knew her best, the most important lesson was simpler. Never underestimate someone willing to put in the work necessary to achieve their goals. Her grandfather's wisdom about marksmanship, that shooting was about understanding yourself as much as understanding your rifle, had proven true in ways that extended far beyond the shooting range. Sarah had learned that precision under pressure was a skill that applied to every challenge life presented, and that confidence earned through competence was the most powerful response to those who doubted her capabilities.